Everybody, I am Tom Summers with Coldwell Banker. For those of you that don't know me, I am a licensed real estate agent here in the state of Minnesota, although a lot of this information that I share with you weekly are things that you can probably take with you and use in your state. Tonight, I wanted to go live and talk a little bit about some of the things that are happening currently in the real estate market. There's a lot of concern, there's a lot of fear and indecisiveness and different things. And I wanted to kind of cut to the bottom of that and go over with you some of the things that I think that are causing this issue. So the first thing I want to talk about is the interest rates. Right now, we had heard that interest rates would be going up because the Fed was going to raise them sometime in March. At the time they started talking about this, it was probably, I don't know, January, February. They thought it would probably go up a quarter point, and it was at around 3.5%. Now, these change on a daily basis, so the figures I'm giving you are all guesstimates, for the lack of a better term. Since then, we thought we'd see maybe a quarter point hike from 3.5 to 3.75, or 3.75 to 4%, and then be in the low fours by midsummer, according to a lot of analysts and different loan officers that I've spoken to. Not sure if it will go much higher than that by the end of the year, but it's possible. Well, all of a sudden, with everything that's been going on with the inflation, the gas prices, and all the stuff that's happening, they jumped up. And last week, they hit 5% in some areas for certain types of loans. That scared everybody. I can tell you the good news is that they are starting to stabilize. I talked to several different loan officers today, and they are dropping. They are at 4.75, give or take. Again, these are guesstimates. A lot of people seem to believe they're going to end up right around 4.5%, which was, if you look at it historically, about where we were at pre-pandemic. So it looks like the market's trying to level itself out, but with all the unrest, with the war in Ukraine and all the things that we've got going on, there's some instability there. I wanted to bring this up front and talk to you why I think some of these things are happening, just to kind of maybe for your own information, even if you own a home and you're not even thinking about selling, but just so you kind of know what's going on and you feel like you've learned something, so that when the topic comes up at work or with your friends, you can say, hey, okay, I think this. Whether you believe me or not or agree, that's okay, but I'm going to lay it out there for you. Right now in Minneapolis, we're down almost 12% in the number of listings that we have as we did the exact same time last year. Except once you get to over $750,000, then we actually have more listings on right now than we did at the same time last year. So what that's telling me is that is feeding into some of the fear and concern for home buyers and home sellers, because the sellers don't know where we can go and what we can do, because we can't find a house, or they believe they can't. And the home buyers are feeling, well, God, how are we ever going to buy a house when there isn't anything to choose from? Think of it this way. It's like going to the supermarket at any time during the day, walking up to the soup aisle, and they're all out of chicken noodle soup. It doesn't mean that they don't have chicken noodle soup, or that chicken noodle soup isn't coming in on a regular basis. But if you only look at one snapshot about it that day at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, they might be out. So rather than having a fully stocked shelf of chicken noodle soup, you have to be selective and check it several times a day to find when it's actually in stock. It's kind of the same thing with real estate. Even though the inventory is lower, we're still selling homes, but they're getting scooped up much quicker, which is why we're getting multiple offers. So it makes sense as to kind of why that's happening. But the other piece that a lot of people aren't talking about, or I think the news is getting wrong, is some of the other things that you have to look at that's creating this problem. Because I thought, well, why do we have this? Why is there such an inventory shortage? And in talking to some very wise people this week, I learned some new things, and I want to share those with you. Everyone's heard about the supply chain problems. Well, the supply chain is an issue right now, and it doesn't seem to matter whether you're buying, golf clubs, or you're buying whatever. There are certain things that are just not getting shipped, and they're sitting on containers, and they're backlogged because even the manufacturers can't get the items that they need to make that good or service that you need. It's the same thing with builders right now. They only have just so many air conditioners they can get their hands on and furnaces, or certain types of wood or certain types of finishes. So instead of building the amount of homes they normally would be building, they've had to scale it back. And in scaling back, when they're looking at their numbers to keep busy but also sell homes and make a profit, they've opted, I think, in my opinion, from what I'm seeing, to build more custom built, luxury built homes that are higher end and much more expensive. So the profit margin is there for them. And they just don't have enough to do mass building right now. So there's a lot of people who are looking for maybe a $500,000 house that are having a harder time, that are being a little bit left in the dust simply because there aren't as many to choose from. So then when you have someone that maybe has been in a house for 30 years and they've raised a couple of kids and they're ready to downsize, those houses aren't selling, or they're not putting them on the market because they're scared that they can't buy that new construction home because the parts and pieces simply aren't available. And some of these construction projects are going to end up taking a year and a half. Well, then you've got other issues with interest rates or the cost of the wood or different things. Because you hear that the cost of wood is coming down. There's probably some truth to that. When I was talking to a supplier last week, they said, yeah, at one point a 2x4 was $3.20 a piece. That went up to $9 or $10. Those have come back down to $5 or $6. But that doesn't mean that a sheet of plywood has come down in price. So the builders are really having a hard time. And because we're so chip based now with everything, especially with things that are in your home, whether it is your furnace and your air conditioner, your lighting, your surround system, whatever, so much of that is application oriented. They're not getting those chips in to complete and finish being able to put some of those products together. So by sharing this with you, I'm hoping it gives you a pause to think that maybe that there's reasonable explanations why this is happening and that the world isn't coming to an end. We also have a lot of young people that were in their mid 20s and 30s in college living at home for a while because there wasn't much out there for rent, that are now jumping into buying a home. So you have an increased demand. There was someone saying today that they had read an article that we're looking at somewhere of a 7-year backlog in homes being built. Because let's not forget, the pandemic, I think, has affected all of us in our lives in ways we are not even aware of yet. It may feel like it's back to normal because I'm going to a concert and there's 10,000 people around me, screaming and singing along with the band. Or that I go to Target or another store and people aren't wearing masks for the most part, and it feels kind of normal because there's a regular amount of people in the store. But it doesn't mean that all of these other things that have built up that we've had a problem with over these last 2 years have just been solved. And so I think all this stuff is kind of building. Then on top of that, with the supply shortage with everything, you've also have a labor shortage. There are people who just can't get the job done because they can't hire the workers. Especially in Minnesota, we have one of the lowest unemployment rates in the country. So if you are trying to have something fixed at your house, good luck getting a handyman over there to do it. Everyone is booked for months. I have a client right now that was looking into having a fence built. And I'm like, okay, well, it's only March. We're looking really good. I would think that you could get that done sometime this summer. No, the fencing company right now is booked out until late September, early October this year because they have such a backlog of people that they couldn't service last year because of the supply chain issue, and new customers that they're fighting to keep things moving forward. It's small little things that you don't necessarily think about that can really add up to large problems. That pandemic backlog has created a glut now in the real estate market as well as the rental market, which many of you see. I think that things will change, but it's going to be slowly getting back to things. It's kind of like losing weight. All right, I'm trying to lose some weight right now. I'm sure many of you are. And I have to be realistic about it and say, well, it took me years to gain these extra pounds that I want to lose. I'm not going to lose them overnight. And I think that that's kind of the thing to remember, that we're all as human beings going through this whole pandemic thing, which we've never been through before, together. I don't want you to lose sight of the fact that if you want to move, that you can do so. You just have to be patient. I was talking to another client of mine just yesterday about patience. Patience is the key to real estate as far as I'm concerned. It makes all the difference in the world. You can't buy a house like you do a pair of shoes on Amazon. You buy them and they show up a day later. It doesn't work that way. And I think you're seeing it with some of the other goods and services now, where if you want to order a sink because you're remodeling your bathroom, which I'm doing right now, there are some of the sinks that my wife found online with my daughter that they're like, oh, yeah, it'll ship from the warehouse in August. And I'm like, holy smokes. And I had to stop and think. I'm like, well, you know what? I'm going live tonight to talk about this with real estate. Here's another thing that just sticks with me that, oh my God, that's right. We've got this supply chain issue that is creating so much trouble. So I think what I really kind of am trying to tell you guys is that whether you're looking to buy or sell right now, it's not a bad time. It's just a different sort of challenge than it has been in the past and will be 2 years from now. You just need to reassess of what's going to work for you, what you need, and then factor in a realistic view of what you need and take a good hard look at the current interest rates, how much you're putting down, all of those types of things to tie it all together. Sam, hey, how are you? It's always good to hear from you. Sam writes, it's always great and truly interesting insights and information, Mr. Tommy. Love these sessions. Sam, thank you so much. I know I don't do them regular enough, but I want to do this for people that can watch this after and it's not just live, because I want to make a difference in your life. I want to help you. I don't care if you are in London, England right now. I want these principles to be able to work for you no matter what corner of the world you're standing in. I can only speak personally about what's going on in my market because it's the market I know. But I'd be willing to bet you if you spoke to somebody in Kansas City or Omaha or Miami, Florida, that they're experiencing something similar as well. I want to leave you with the thought that there's always a reason for things. It can all work out. Everything is going to be just fine. We just need to stick it out, be patient, and realize that we'll get to where we need to go, but it may not be as quick as we want it to be. So that's kind of what I've got to say. I hope anyone that watches this, you got something great out of it. That's my intention. Have a wonderful week. Keep checking in on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, anywhere I can be found. And if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me personally. I'm happy to answer anything that I can for you. Have a super, super evening, morning, afternoon, wherever you are in the world, and I will see you again soon.